he knows what is, what he's doing. So he tries to tell me that he'd prefer to do it his way. So
That's right, Bill.
he has. He's worked for Old South. He's been here since like 2013, and this is semi-retirement. This is a fiberglass composite carriage on wheels that he pulls on a level surface for a few hours a day with union brakes in between. And his home is on John's Island, where we have a 65-acre farm. So Bill never sleeps downtown. Good morning, Tom. I'm on Carriage 351. Driving Bill, and I have 12.
Oh, what's that for?
This is to tell us where to go. We have the largest historic district in the country. We're on a small peninsula going through residential areas. They only let 28 carriages out at a time. Thanks, Michelle.
You're so welcome, Miss Emily.
And so they won't send 2 carriages to the same zone back to back.
That's nice.
And so we got zone 1A.
Which is
The best.
The best.
Come on, Bill.
Maybe I can let you see. She wasn't going to say anything else.
I was wondering where those balls are for.
Hey, I was gonna say, what happens if you get like 47Z?
Yeah, there's only 5 zones, so this is a great zone. This is the one everybody wants to go on. We're gonna go see Rainbow Row on the Battery. Whoa, Bill. Hey, Bill.
Bill said, I'm ready to go take a nap. Let's get this over
Bill.
with.
So the first thing that we're going to do heading out is head south on Church Street.
Yes, it is.
Down.
Down.
The church up ahead in the middle of the street is St. Philip's Episcopal Church, the oldest congregation in South Carolina. They've been meeting on our peninsula since 1680. The church building's not the oldest. It dates to 1838. If you look at the steeple at St. Philip's, it actually leans about 4 degrees to the east or to the left from this side.
Okay.
And that is because of an earthquake. August 31st, 1886. Charleston had an earthquake that would have been about 7.3 on the Richter scale. It damaged or destroyed almost 90% of the city's masonry buildings. Any of the brick, stone, or stucco. It rang church bells in Boston. Now, we haven't had a major one since, and hopefully this street continues while you guys visit. Charlestown was founded in 1670. We were part of a grant of land that King Charles II of England gave to 8 lords proprietors in 1663. These were noblemen who supported it through the English Civil War. They brought him back from exile, put him on the throne, step off. And so in return, he gave them all the land lying south of Virginia, north of Florida, to the Pacific Ocean. Yes, it was very generous, considering it wasn't his land. They founded the Carolina colony. So the original settlement in 1670 was a few miles up the Ashley River, but we weren't having much success there. It was the friendly Kiowa Indians who suggested we try life on the peninsula here, where we get the breezes off the ocean. They called it Shikora, land of the healing breezes, and we settled on the peninsula here in 1680. But this was at a time when European countries were colonizing land all over the world. And we had the Spanish to the south in Florida and the French hanging around. So we built walls around the original settlement. We were the only British walled city in North America. And what we're riding along here, Cumberland Street, this is where the northern wall of the walled city was. Today on this tour, we're doing basically a perimeter of the old walled city. Right now, as we turn right, we are entering the confines of the old walled city. Now, they were up by about 1700. The only part of the wall that we knew was masonry was the eastern sea wall, which is roughly a block over on East Bay Street. All of the other ones, good morning, all of the interior walls were just earthen and log, and most of those were gone by the 1730s. In 1719, we petitioned the king to become a British crown colony. The lords proprietors were not providing a defense for the colony, and so once we became a British crown colony, we had a military to defend us. But we'll be talking about the wall as we go along. Now, most of the islands in the Caribbean were colonized. By the time we were, one of the wealthiest English colonies was Barbados. The wealth there came primarily from rice and sugar planting. Now, you run out of land on an island to plant on. To get some of those planters to come here to the Carolina colony where the land was basically unlimited. The Lord's proprietors offered grants of land to anybody that would come settle here, with additional land for any indentured servants or slaves that were brought with you. Okay, we're almost a colony of Barbados. And they also offered religious tolerance. That was a very big deal in the 17th century. There weren't many places around the world where you could worship freely. One of the first religious groups coming here seeking relief from religious persecution were French Huguenots. Huguenot is a French term for Protestant. Walk on, Bill. The first one arrived in 1680. We have the only active French Huguenot church in the Western Hemisphere, one block up at Church and Queen Street. And this area of the peninsula is called the French Quarter. This was originally more of a commercial industrial area right off of the commercial waterfront on the Cooper River. And these were workshops, warehouses, things like that. Today it's kind of a mixed bag. You have some offices and some shops and some residents. Now, Charleston, we have 8 cobblestone streets. Chalmers Street over here on the right is the longest cobblestone street. Now, we don't have stone indigenous. You guys know where the stones came from? Step up, babe. They
It's like river rock.
yeah, they were river rock from England. They would weigh their ships down for the voyage across the Atlantic, using it as ballast. And when they got here, they unloaded it, replaced it with goods, and so we started using it. So then, of course, they started taxing it. We said, never mind. You can take it back. We don't, we already pay enough in taxes. Now, in Charleston, you wanted your kitchen separate because of the heat it generated, but also because of the fires we had. You look over here on the left, you got 8.5 State Street.
That's my
That was the kitchen house for number 8, which was not the drive-through of a bank. That was someone's home. That was their kitchen house. You'll notice the fraction addresses around town, and that's just an indication that it probably belonged to a neighboring property at one time. Now that is an office today. It sold a couple years ago for nearly $600,000. So location, location, location. Now something smells good, doesn't it? Coming up here to Broad Street. Woo, babe. Woo. Bill.
Bill does not want to
He's
stop.
starting out on the wrong foot. Step paw, babe. Bill. Step paw, baby. I got you. I will not let that truck get you. I promise. I know.
I ain't mad at you.
I'm watching that truck.
Don't worry, Bill's watching that truck.
He said, I see it.
So, as you can guess, Bill's not a fan of big loud trucks.
Bill don't like anything bigger than Bill.
Really, who is, right? Bill's grumpy old man. Now, the building straight in front of us is one of the most important colonial buildings in the country. The old Exchange and Provost Dungeon was the last building built in America with British funds. Construction ended in 1771. Whoa. Thank you, Bill. They did not get a good return on their investment. 5 years later, we were reading the Declaration of Independence from the balcony there in the front. And when the British occupied Charleston during the American Revolution, they used the dungeon as a prison for local patriots. At one point in time during the Revolution, 3 of Charleston signers of the Declaration of Independence were imprisoned there. One of only a few buildings standing in the country where the United States Constitution was ratified. And in 1791, when George Washington visited the city, balls were held for him in the upper stateroom, where he recalled being entertained by 256 of Charleston's finest ladies.
Ladies only.
It's a very large and specific number. I don't think it was only ladies, but those are the ones he wrote about. But today that's a museum. Does not require a big investment of time, energy, or money, and I definitely recommend checking it out. It's also built on the halfway point of the eastern sea wall. East Bay Street
She
right
better
here.
move. Oh, he's recording.
This is where the eastern sea wall was. The only part that was masonry. Bill, what you see to the left of us is man-made land. Nearly a third of this peninsula is man-made land, just marsh and tidal creeks that have been slowly filled in over time. This was the commercial waterfront. This block of East Bay Street on the right is Rainbow Road. If you've heard of it, it's the longest row of 18th century Georgian row houses in the country. These were stores on the ground floor. The owners had living quarters above them. And after the Civil War, these fell into decline. They were tenements, and by the first decade of the 20th century, they were threatened with demolition. So, a couple of Charleston ladies, a socialite named Dorothy Legg, and Susan Pringle Frost, she was South Carolina's first female real estate broker. They started buying the properties and restoring them. They would have parties and galas inviting people to see what they were doing and to join the preservation movement. And they saved it from demolition. And they're the ones that chose the pastel colors on the houses as a reflection of our Caribbean influence. There was an article done in a National Geographic about the preservation movement here in Charleston, and a photograph of the block was published, and a caption read, "What a beautiful rainbow row of colors," and the name stuck. But those same ladies got a 1931 zoning ordinance passed establishing an old and historic district. Instead of preserving landmarks one at a time here and there, the goal was to preserve the entire area. This is the end of Rainbow Row right here at Carriage Street, but this next block, you wouldn't know it wasn't Rainbow Row because of that zoning ordinance. It created a Board of Architectural Review that has jurisdiction over anything done to the exterior of property visible from the public right-of-way. The bar created a 75-year rule. Anything in Charleston over 75 years old can't be taken down by the hands of man unless there's a really good reason for it. So that's the reason why we look so good. So that if you're on the block next to Rainbow Row, it doesn't hurt if your house looks like it belongs on Rainbow Row. But most of what we are looking at today, these are single family homes and private residences. The real estate, we're talking about $1 million per 1,000 square feet.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll show you my house in a minute. These were originally townhouses for wealthy planters. Charleston's economy before the Civil War based on three big cash crops: rice, cotton, and indigo. And
The color blue.
yeah, the plantation where these were grown weren't located here on the peninsula. They were on the area rivers and sea islands. The planters built townhouses here on the peninsula where they could come in the summer and catch the breezes off the ocean. And they would come in town in January for the social season, which lasted until the beginning of spring, was highlighted by Race Week in February. Charleston had 2 horse racing tracks on the peninsula. We had the first jockey club in America. We had the first theater in America. We had the first golf club in America. And by 1720, Charleston had a tavern for every 13 citizens. The planters, they were living their best lives. They didn't have to work for the vast fortunes they amassed, and they spent their time in leisurely pursuits. Now, if you look over here across the street, the James Misroon House.
It's the what?
James Misroon House. That was the name of the man who built it in 1806. What I want you to look at is these last 2 windows and that plaque that's on there. That plaque is a map of the walled city and can be found at each of the 4 corner bastions of the walled city. So we've been riding along where the eastern wall was, and now we've come to where it connected with the southern wall. And the southern wall extends westward. We'll see where it meets up on Meeting Street. But so basically, you know, as we are about to go downhill, we're going onto man-made land. A lottery was held in 1798 to build the sea wall in front of us. Now,
When was the land filled?
well, this was held in 1798, so shortly after that.
Wow.
You know, and it would have just been like, you know, slowly filled in over time. You know what we would say is landfill or.
So where did they get the? Where did they get
a
the
lot
stuff
of it was
to fill it?
garbage.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. So we don't we have pretty names for everything here in Charleston. Woeville. Like, you know, it's man-made land or found land. The land was under the water the whole time. We found it and we filled it in with garbage. So, like, we don't have porches, we have piazzas, and we have these giant flying, hissing cockroaches that we call palmetto bugs. So, yeah, that's for you. The giant rats. The giant rats sometimes be found in downtown areas. Those are river dogs.
Okay.
That's what our minor league baseball team's named, the River Dogs. So yeah. But look over here on the right. You see the side of the building, the rod over here? I'll scoot up a little bit. And then you have, this is how we repaired the earthquakes, earthquake damaged buildings after 1886. So we ran rods in between the levels of the buildings. Bill, I've had it with you. Sir, cut it out. So we ran rods in between the levels of the buildings, securing them on the outside with the washers and bolts you see in between the first and second level. In the middle, a turnbuckle connected it. And as you turned it and cranked it over time, thank you, Bill, it brought your walls slowly and hopefully back to stability. Hopefully a 90-degree angle. Generally, the only thing you're going to see from the street are the earthquake bolts, and you'll start to notice them. They're pretty common, and that just gives you an idea of how many, how bad that earthquake was, seeing the buildings that are left. But
so how often is there new construction inside of the city walk area? Because it looks like there's none.
Well, there is. In the residential area, not as much as you would in the commercial areas. Anything, you have to have your plans approved by the bar. I mean, there's not any residential lots really, on the peninsula that don't have anything on them. So, in order to build something new, you'd have to tear something down, and that's pretty hard to get done. But now the house coming up on the right is the Edmonston Alston House, and this is a house museum you can tour. Originally built in 1825, Joseph Alston, a wealthy rice planter, purchased the property in 1838 and renovated it. And April 12th, 1861, the Alstons had a party and invited their family and friends to come join them on the rooftop and the piazzas so they could watch the fireworks begin when the first shots of the Civil War were fired out in the harbor, beginning the bloodiest war in American history. Now, nobody really anticipated that it was going to be the bloodiest war in American history, obviously. And magazines around here speculated if the conflict was going to last for longer than 6 weeks, the ladies would not get the latest fashions from New York. Among the attendees at the party was General Pierre Gustave. Drive slow, homie. He's going too fast. But Pierre Gustave Toutant Beauregard. PGT Beauregard was the Louisiana general in charge of the forces here during the Civil War. He watched some bombardment at Fort Sumter from their second-story piazza. Now, straight out in the middle of the harbor, it's to the right of that large barge or freight ship. There is a small man-made island all by itself. Looks like a one-tiered birthday cake. That's Fort Sumter. That's where those shots landed.
Wow.
Now, you fast forward almost to the end of the war.
Was it a fort then, or just an island?
It was a fort, yeah, Fort Sumter. The fort was being built by the federal government, and the December 20th, 1860, after we signed the Ordinance of Secession, Major Robert Anderson moved his troops from, I believe he's at Fort Johnson, to Fort Sumter. And so and that's when the Civil War began, when we fired onto Fort Sumter. But, towards the end of the war, I mean, we endured a 587-day siege and bombardment at the hands of the Union. And so, by the end of that, nobody was out here celebrating, and no one was worried about fashions from New York. We had been laid waste and abandoned. We blew up a large cannon about a block up, and a Confederate cannon when we were evacuating the city, and a 500-pound piece of it landed in William Roper's attic. This house right here. Now, this was built in 1838. He has Lion's Head earthquake bolts. He's gone pretty fancy. But the 500-pound piece is still in the attic. Step up, babe. Now this mansion, you're okay, babe. This mansion on the right was built in 1848. But it recently underwent a 5-year restoration, like no holds barred, no expense spared. And I don't know. Not any of my tour guide friends. I said none of my tour guide friends are the ones that live there or own it.
It's a personal house?
Yeah.
Okay.
These are private homes, believe it or not. Step up, babe. But now we're at the intersection of East Battery and South Battery. And this was where that large Confederate cannon was that was blown up in 1865. The park over here is White Point Gardens. People in general refer to the area as the Battery, but it's actually referring to the sea walls. The original sea wall, if you look over here, in between the curb and the grass, you'll see a masonry part there. That was the original sea wall to the Ashley River. To the Ashley River, but again, man-made land, everything past it. Now this is the Villa Margarita. This was built in 1894 as a private home, but it was turned into a hotel in the 20th century. The likes of Theodore Roosevelt and Henry Ford stayed there, but it's back to being a private residence today. This is the oldest home on the Battery, the Colonel William Washington House. This was built in 1768. He was the second cousin of George Washington and was a cavalry officer in the Revolutionary War. But this house on the right is the 2 Meeting Street Inn. It is a bed and breakfast that has been named one of the most romantic in the South by Southern Living. So it's a pretty romantic story all around. Bill. In 1890, a lady named Martha Williams, her father gave her, on the day of her wedding, a satin pillow and a note attached to it that said, "Dear Maddie, on the day of your dreams, build the house of your dreams. Love, Daddy," and had $50,000 with it. That's what it would build you in 1890. The 2 Meeting Street Inn. So the groom's family were jewelers and didn't want to be outdone. They sent him on a honeymoon through Europe while the house was being built. And for the 5th wedding anniversary, as a gift, Louis Comfort Tiffany designed and installed 2 stained glass windows in the home. Today, those are insured for more than the house was built for. And also, like kids under 12 are invited to stay somewhere else. But she wrote to her father from her honeymoon in Paris and said, "This is the most beautiful city in the world. I'm not coming home." And her dad said, "Yes, you are." And so he put a piece of Paris on her house so she would always remember that time. On the back of the roof, on the back of the house, what may appear to be a chimney is a miniature Art de Triomphe like you would find in Paris.
Oh, that's so cool.
Isn't that ridiculous? Doesn't get much more over the top than that.
Exactly.
So Martha's father was a man named George Walton Williams, and he was a wealthy shipping merchant, banker, and entrepreneur. He was wealthy at the time of the Civil War. When the war broke out, the Union blockaded the harbor. He saw his chance to make more money. Now, he wasn't Rep Butler in Gone with the Wind, the blockade runner who brought illegal supplies in and out. He was like Rep Butler's banker. He financed blockade runners, and he did it for both sides, the North and the South. But he knew at the end of the war, one side's money wouldn't be worth the paper it's printed on, so he only took his payments in British sterling, silver, and gold. And this is his house that he built for himself after the war. This is the largest private residence in Charleston. 24,000 square feet.
Wow.
35 rooms. There weren't a whole lot of mansions being built in the South after the Civil War. He was one of the city's biggest employers building the house. And it is still a private residence today. The owner before the pandemic would open the first 2 floors in the afternoon for house tours, but he hasn't reopened. But if you remember the miniseries North and South, this was the Northern family's house, the Hazard's house in the movie. But step up. And look at the entryway, it's so beautiful. Especially when he has his chandelier on. But,
So what is the main business in this area? Meaning, like, is there
Shipping.
industry, right?
yeah, shipping. This house once belonged to Thomas Hayward Jr., signer of the Declaration of Independence. At the time of the American Revolution, we were the 4th largest populated city in America, behind Philadelphia, Boston, and New York. We were the wealthiest city in America, wealthier than all 3 of those cities combined. And
Look at the little puppy.
oh.
It's the golden.
Yeah, see, I love golden. And Charleston was the capital of South Carolina originally. And in 1775, Charleston's Commons Assembly voted to oust the royal governor, raise the militia, and strengthen the defenses of Charleston Harbor. So our last royal governor was Lord William Campbell. He arrived in 1775 to a very chilly reception. He lived in this house on the right for a few months before fleeing for his life. And now the house across the street, built in 1720. That was home to our first royal governor, Lord William Bull. And the house next to it with these double bay windows, that house was built in 1760. That was the headquarters for General P.G.T. Beauregard while he was here during the Civil War. Yeah, spring is the best time to come to Charleston. You got such amazing gardens and everything. Even, you know, when it's not spring, everybody has their window boxes and everything just exquisitely manicured. It's big business here. Now, this to the right is the back of the First Baptist Church. Most every town has a First Baptist Church, but this is the First Baptist Church. Their congregation formed in 1682. And the house across the street from it, this is the Nathaniel Russell House. This is another house museum. Built in 1808, Nathaniel Russell was a Rhode Island slave merchant. The inside of it is a 3-story, free-flying mahogany spiral staircase. No visible means of support. If you have the chance to go inside a house museum, that's a really, really fine one to go in. But and right back here at the corner post of the graveyard is that plaque again. Now we're at the southwestern corner bastion, and we are riding along the western wall now. This church over here is First Scots Presbyterian Church. The congregation formed in 1731 by 12 Scottish families. The church building dates to 1814. But they're the ones, they brought the game of golf. Whoa, Bill. This house across the street is the Branford Orry House. This is built in 1751. Look at all the attention to detail just on the piazza. We got a bump here, y'all. The house next door to it, 61 Meeting Street, that was the carriage house for the Branford Orry House originally, and now it's its own $1 million residence. So that's where the carriage would have gone in. The windows are where the stalls for the horses would have been.
A lot of work on these houses being done all the time.
Yeah, there is. Have you seen the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
It was filmed here. Across the street, that was used for Aunt Charlotte's townhouse in the movie. And over here on the right, South Carolina Society Hall. This was the backdrop in the movie when they come in the beginning to raise a militia. They throw a burning effigy of King George off the second-story balcony. You don't have to do much to get a good setting for a period film. So yeah, there is a lot of work. You know, people buying houses in this area south of Broad. They're doing it because it's the place to be, right? Very fashionable. And, you know, probably most of the people that live down here aren't part of that shipping industry. And most of them are not homes that have been passed down through generations. What you're going to have, I mean, some of these are just, hey, private homes for you know, wealthy Charlestonians. You got like lawyers, and you've got a medical profession. You got Boeing here, you're all right, Bill. I know you don't like the sound of that truck. We're gonna let it go past. You're okay. It's all right, Bill. I got you, babe. I got you. I know. We don't like it either. But a lot of the work will be done on the inside of the house because the bar doesn't have any say-so over what happens on the inside of your house. So you can totally go in and gut it and have a state-of-the-art everything. It's just the outside that they have jurisdiction over. But all right, buddy, we're almost there. It's about to be moving up. You want to go past it? We can. It's up to you, Bill. What do you want to do? All right, now we'll go. So the intersection we're coming up to at Broad and Meeting Street has been given the name the Four Corners of Law by Robert Ripley of Ripley's Believe It or Not. The only place in the world you can find 4 different laws represented on each corner. So beginning over here on the left-hand side, that is our federal courthouse and post office, built in the 1890s. On the right-hand corner, we have St. Michael's Episcopal Church. That's the oldest church structure in the city. Construction began on it in 1752. The first services were held in 1761. In the graveyard over there, you've got 2 signers of the Constitution buried there, John Rutledge and Charles Coatsworth Pinckney. Across from the federal courthouse over there, that is the old county courthouse today, but that was where the state house was. Okey-dokey.
Do these vendors have to have a license on the side of the sidewalk?
Yeah. You done. And then on the corner opposite of St. Michael's is City Hall, and we'll see it in just a second. So the 4 laws you have are God's law, federal, state, municipal. Oh, Bill. Or the way I remembered it for the tour guide exam, hail, mail, bail, and jail. The vendors, these are sweetgrass baskets. The sweetgrass is a thin marsh grass. Can you scoot up? Hello?
Are they beeping at you?
No. Whoa, Bill. The sweetgrass baskets. So each one of those baskets is hand sewn and unique. They're very labor intensive. They are sewn by the Gola and Geechee. Gola and Geechee are the terms for the cultures that formed on the Sea Islands of South Carolina and Georgia when the West Africans were enslaved, and coming from a lot of different cultures on our Sea Islands isolated from the rest of the world. The culture generally here is called Gola. that's a tradition they brought from Africa. They were used in rice harvesting and other agricultural and household uses. And again, there's only 3 places in the world today they are sown. Here, the Sea Islands of Georgia, and in Africa. Step up, come on.
That's right, Bill. Make them wait.
I mean, it's an ancient tradition going back to biblical times. How did Moses get down the Nile? And the sweetgrass apple. So it's much, much more than an overpriced knickknack. Now, over here on the right is Washington Square, dedicated to George Washington in 1881 on the 100-year anniversary of the Battle of Yorktown. We are world famous for our ironwork, most of it being wrought iron done by hand with a forge and an anvil and a hammer. And you're really not going to find much better craftsmanship than across the street over here at Hibernian Hall. Look at the cursive letters. Like, I can't write that neat, much less try to forge it in iron. That was done by an ironworker named Christopher Verner in the 19th century. The Hibernian Society is an Irish charitable and social society. The building was built in 1840. Now, December 20th, 1860, the Ordinance of Secession, sorry, we have very bumpy streets. The Ordinance of Secession was signed here in Charleston, making South Carolina the first state to secede from the Union. The signing of it took place at Institute Hall, a large auditorium which once stood right here on the right. It was burned down a year later, December 11th, 1861. In that fire, it started on the Cooper River, went to the Ashley River, destroyed a third of the city, nearly 1,000 structures.
Was it natural fire?
It was believed to be a cooking fire. But it was 7 months after the Civil War began, so it begs the question, did it have something to do with the war? The cause was never directly linked to, like, the Union, but
Big fire.
yeah, that was our biggest. We've had 5 great fires in our history. And so, especially in that walled city that we just went through over there, everything is so packed in. And when something catches on fire, those nice breezes off the ocean just blow it from rooftop to rooftop.
You're hungry.
But now we're back to Cumberland Street, the northern wall of the walled city. So if you look on the blue building across the street, there's the plaque again. So we've done a perimeter basically of the walled city. Yeah. Now the church we just passed, it's called the Circular Congregation Church. And if you look at this side of it, you can see why it's called circular. It looks kind of like a 3-leaf clover, triapsidal in shape. In their graveyard, that's the oldest graveyard in the city. Oldest legible grave in there is 1695. Anytime the gates are open to a graveyard or cemetery, you can go in and look around. Y'all know the difference between a graveyard and cemetery? A graveyard is attached to a church. A cemetery is not. Never dawned on me there was a difference till I became a tour guide in Charleston. Nobody knows that information. This is the oldest public building in the Carolinas. The Powder magazine dates to 1713. And that is from the walled city period. It was just inside the northern wall. It was set back furthest from the homes in the walled city in case it exploded. Yeah. The only people that know that graveyard cemetery thing are tour guides in Charleston, people they've given tours to. So, now buried in the graveyard at St. Philip's, hey, Bill, is Edward Rutledge, the youngest signer of the Declaration of Independence. He was 26 years old when he signed the document. Now, we passed St. Michael's graveyard where John Rutledge was, his older brother who signed the Constitution. Now, you would think when the Declaration of Independence in 1776, it would be the oldest son who would have signed it. But, this was at a time when, the firstborn son was all that mattered really as far as children went. He inherited everything, carried on the name and the estate. So the Declaration of Independence, we weren't too sure how that was going to turn out. They didn't want to bring out their oldest son for that. They sent their youngest son in case it went south. But so when it came time to form a new nation, they brought out the oldest son. And for that reason, there was no love lost between the brothers.
Hey, Junior, we got a job for you.
Yeah, I'd be a little unhappy myself. Coming back into the city market, the land for the city market running from Meeting Street to East Bay was given to the city in 1788 by the Pinckney family to be used as a free market. It has been a market since 1807. Now in the 19th century, this was like a grocery store. Meat was butchered and sold on the Meeting Street side, and you had produce, poultry, and on the other end, fish and seafood. Today in the market,
I've been through all that.
these are local artisans and vendors. You have to be local to sell in the market. The waiting list for one of these tables is like 50 or 60 years.
Oh my God.
All the stipulations given in 1788 still apply. The Pinckney family is still here. Odds are you'll probably hear somebody call this the slaves market, and if you do, it is a misnomer. Slaves were never bought and sold in the market because it was a stipulation of the land being given to the city. They were not to be. They were the ones sent to do the buying and the selling in the 19th century at the meat market, fish market. So like in farmer's market, you don't go there to buy a farmer. You didn't come to this slave market to buy a slave. Now, 40% of the slaves, that came into British North America came through Charleston, South Carolina. But
seafood.
95% of the auctions were held on the commercial wharves on the Cooper River. One of those was Gadsden's Wharf, and we have a $100 million International African American Museum that's supposed to open at the end of the year. So it's going to be a great addition to the city. We're very excited about it. But now the market is built on a creek bed. It's going to be the first thing in Charleston to flood. And you can see the water marks here on the brick pillars from recent events. So hopefully the rain's out of here for the weekend. But last chance for questions, y'all. Oh, Bill.
What was that tower?
Whoa.
Observation tower for?
That was a fire watch tower. That was built in 1887. Another reason why we had so many great fires, we didn't have a professional fire department until 1882, 21 years after the last great fire. So, since we've had a professional fire department, there have been no fires. Big fires. Imagine that. Yeah. Hey, Brandon. All right, buddy, step up. So, Bill may be hitting the booze pop van a little early today. We'll get him one of those apple teeny martini pops. That'll settle him right down. Thank you guys so much for coming on the tour today. I hope y'all had fun and enjoyed it. My name's Emily and this is Bill. And thank you so much for riding with Old South. Bill will do the parking for us. If Bill could talk, I wouldn't have a job. If Bill could talk,